Back in 2012, I wrote my first cover story for Forbes, and we needed a trend, a famous person, and something that had never been done before at a certain magnitude, and I found it in the form of Justin Bieber investing in startups. So we put out the cover, and we had a little line on it that said, "The most surprising business story you'll read this year." And I think at the time, it really was. But today, things are a lot different. Some of the biggest names in entertainment have stakes in some of the most popular startups that have now become multi-billion-dollar companies, from Uber to Airbnb, Spotify, and so on. So writing this story on Justin Bieber really kind of opened my eyes to what became a true trend, where athletes and entertainers now have this path toward creating generational wealth just by leveraging the fame that they create during their prime. So how far back does this trend go? You could argue it dates all the way back to Ty Cobb investing in Coca-Cola or Babe Ruth getting into menswear, but it was never really a trend until about a decade ago. And what I think really kicked off the modern day version of this was 50 Cent. Back in the mid-aughts, he invested in vitamin water. Instead of taking an endorsement check, he took equity. And so 50 Cent really bet on himself. He created his own vitamin water flavor called Formula 50. He starred in commercials and really kind of merged his own identity with that of the brand. So when Coca-Cola came along and bought the company for over $4 billion, 50 Cent walked away with about $100 million. And that really opened a lot of people's eyes to this phenomenon. So actually in 2016, when I wrote my next cover story on this, it was about Ashton Kutcher. And he cited that moment with 50 Cent as sort of an eye-opener for him. He racked up stakes in Skype and Foursquare early, and then parlayed it into a partnership with Guy Oseary, the manager of Madonna and U2. And together they built a fund of their own that invested in Uber, Airbnb, Spotify, Pinterest, you name it. And they actually managed to turn about $30 million in investment into $250 million in just over 5 years.
I think our earliest challenges were just relative to credibility and value add. Like, people would sort of look and go, well, you guys are entertainment guys, like how's that value add to a tech company that we're building? And then we faced the hurdle again when we started making enterprise bets. And I feel like every vertical, there's a function of proving how all the other things that we do actually plug into value on behalf of the company.
Once people saw that it wasn't just about doing it, sort of on a one-off level like 50 Cent had done with vitamin water, but that you could really create a diversified portfolio of this stuff, the trend really exploded. Much like the way that athletes such as Shaquille O'Neal went out west to Los Angeles during their playing days with the hopes of becoming movie stars in the off-season or after they retired, now one of the big things is go to San Francisco, be near the venture capital scene, rub elbows with funders and founders, etc. And take somebody like Kevin Durant, who succeeded in doing that. In addition to winning championships, he also really built out his venture capital career. He started his own fund, much like Ashton Kutcher. It's called 35 Ventures, and invested in companies from Acorns to Postmates to Coinbase. He's one of the more prolific investors out there, which was part of the reason he ended up on the cover of Forbes recently.
It was just a different crowd when I went to San Francisco. Being able to be around the tech crowd, being around the younger generation, it felt like it was exactly where I need to be when it comes to being a young entrepreneur. So much inspiration and so much innovation out there as well. So it was perfect. It was like a melting pot for people, especially young people.
Another big star who's done a fantastic job of investing is Serena Williams. Her firm Serena Ventures has stakes in dozens of startups, from unicorns like Coinbase to startups founded by women and minorities like Maven. And she's really at the forefront of trying to bring up that next group of entrepreneurs to create the next unicorns, perhaps in places where they have not traditionally come from.
When I first started, I was like, everyone else, I was like, oh, that's a good company. I want to invest in that. That's a good company. And I didn't really have a theme or a motto. But then I learned that less than 2% of VC money was going to female founders, and even less to women and people of color. So I thought, well, that's what I need to do. I need to start supporting more companies like that. And I was like, how do I raise awareness about this? And how do I also take a lead on it? So that was really important to me to do that and to continue to do that. And, we're just starting and we're just growing and growing.
So you may be thinking, why do we care that these people who are already rich and famous are becoming richer, in fact, full-on wealthy, and even more famous. And, it's a fair question, but when you really dig in, this is a group that was treated as essentially wage laborers that were paid in cash, perhaps handsomely, but often died broke. Now they're finding a way to have secure futures and to flourish like the people who were flourishing off of their content in the past. I think even more importantly, for the next generation looking up, they're able to see people who look like them, who came from places like the places they came from, in these roles as investors, as entrepreneurs. And it really opens up a whole array of different careers that kids out there can aspire to.